I'm Alicia from Argentina. I moved to Australia when I was 19. Thought I'd do the world in alphabetical order, but stopped when I realized Austria was next. It might sound funny to you, but my proudest achievement is that I have a job. The first few months I was a cleaner and a fruit picker, but the work never lasted. It was hard to get a real job, especially as a foreigner with no skills or experience, until I came across this ad in the local paper. It looked very much like a joke, but I decided to call anyway. A man named Brian answered, and after a few minutes, I knew it was real. He sounded too legitimate. Brian told me they'd give me a trial, and I cried with gratitude. He said it was great how much passion I was already showing. My first morning came around, and I went to a funeral. Some might say this is a bad way to start a career, but I'm not a superstitious person. The deceased was an old lady by the name of Ming Chu Smith. It was a small procession, and I stood near the end of the second row. I didn't know Ming Chu. I wasn't sad about a stranger passing away, but there were all these people standing around, and not a single one of them was crying. Half of them looked bored, like they wanted to leave and watch TV. This poor woman. She'd been here for 89 years, and no one loved her enough to cry. It was so sad. I mean, what's wrong with these people? This poor old lady must deserve at least one good sob. She was someone's mom, someone's grandma. Maybe when she was still had her own teeth, she was someone's lover. She was certainly kind to animals, a good neighbor. I couldn't imagine how sad I'd be if it was my own darling Nana. All of a sudden, tears were streaming from my eyes. I let out a noise. The woman next to me let out a sniffle, then the woman next to her chokes. Before you know it, they're all moaning and weeping and screaming. Why, God? When service was over, a man with a red and swollen eyes came and gave me a big hug. Thank you. Mom told us on her deathbed that all she wanted was for everyone to cry at her funeral. I'll put in good word to your boss. Brian was very happy with the report from Ming Chu's son, and I passed the test. $200 per funeral, they paid me, plus a travel and tissue allowance. The work depended on clients, but it was up to 10 per week. Did you know over 150,000 people die daily? You'd be surprised how many people hire a crier. The second funeral was for a middle aged loner, and I think I was really there to make up the numbers. It was hard to feel anything, so I thought how sad it was that so few people cared about him after 56 years of life. I managed to cry quietly while his three relatives watched on solemnly. Most of the time, I would turn up late to avoid those "How did you know her?" conversations. It was often difficult to find a reason to cry about dead strangers, but I always managed, and the friend or relative who hired Brian's company would go home happy. Well, not happy, but one day, I discovered that being a funeral fluffer had its dangers. They were burying one of the best looking guys I'd ever seen, and I started my routine. A sniffle, a sudden sob, a pretend cough to cover it. The tears start flowing, and I wipe my eyes with a wad of tissues. I openly cry in deep, pitiful despair as this amazing, beautiful person I didn't even know or care about is dumped in the earth for good. It's just so goddamn freaking sad. All of a sudden, this woman has me by the arm and drags me away from the congregation. So, you're the slut. You have some nerve showing up here. Who are you? I'm just here to pay my respects. Everyone knows Rocco's wife. She slaps me when I corrected her with widow. Turns out Rocco's sister hated her guts and hired me because she knew her sister in law would make a scene and embarrass herself. Unbelievable. The next day, I was so rattled that I went to the wrong service, cried like I'd never been sad in my life until I saw the angry text from Brian asking me where I was. He called and chastised me until I sobbed out an apology. We both laughed at the irony. Things go smoothly for months after that until a prominent radio commentator dies and a dozen criers are brought in to make it look like he wasn't reviled by the entire country. I wonder what makes a person hate his fellow man as much as this man did, and how much everyone hated him in turn, and the whole thing makes me cry. The others who came with me haven't started yet, and I think, really? These amateurs need their own crier to get them started? Before my grief has a chance to affect the people around me, I hear a commotion outside. I try to ignore it, but it gets more and more commotiony, and I realize it's protesters. Can you believe it? Security guards and funeral staff try to get it under control, but it continues. People are too distracted to mourn. I get up and march outside and see there were 3 rows of angry men and women holding signs and chanting. I scream at them. He's dead, you idiots! Do you think he was a bad man because of what he said on the radio? Is that it? Well, guess what? He didn't listen to you when he was alive, and he's certainly ignoring you now. All you're doing is upsetting his friends and relatives, and none of us have done anything wrong. What you're doing to these poor people makes you no better than he was. Let us mourn in peace. A few of them looked down in shame. They didn't go away, but they stopped chanting, and I went back inside. The lady next to me gave me a big smile and a congratulations. Thank you, I said. Now start the bloody waterworks. The next week, I got a call from a hospital in Argentina. My nana had died. I flew home to say farewell, and I was sadder than I imagined a person could be. The funeral was more or less like any other I'd been to in the last year, except for one big difference. I couldn't cry. The person I loved most in this world, and nothing I thought of could bring even one tear. Forgive me, Nana. I love you so much. I can't bear to spoil our last moments together with unclear eyes. But I didn't believe that. When I returned, I told Brian I was done. He wrote me a beautiful reference but said he wouldn't give it to me until I did one last job. But I can't cry. I'm sure you can. I'll pay you even if you don't. I went, and the second the service started, I gouged like a broken water main. I could only think of my Nana and how ashamed I was not to have cried. What was wrong with me that I could cry for strangers and not the woman who raised me? Brian offered me an extra 10% commission on top of my fee, and I kept the job. Every funeral I go to is for Nana, and every tear I shed is for her. But I still go home at the end of the day with a string of satisfied clients in my wake. Well, not my wake, but okay, I'm due to leave for my next appointment. Goodbye, Nana. Thank you for the life you gave me. I love you and I will cry for you again soon. I will cry for you every day, sometimes 3 or 4 times. Thank you, Nana, and goodbye.